The Democrats are playing dirty.
Mr. Reagan.
Okay, so I am sitting down to my desk today in order to vote for the California elections here in the state in which I still live for some reason. And I was looking through all the mail I got with regard to this election, and I noticed this. It's one of those things that they send you, where it's like, we, the Republican Party, we recommend that you vote for these candidates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is from the Citizens for Good Government, which sounds very good, sounds very nice. And it says right here, attention, Los Angeles Republicans. You see that? Attention, Los Angeles Republicans. They've got some kind of an elephant on an American flag shield. And when you open it up, look at this. Lincoln, Reagan, Eisenhower, three of the greatest Republicans of all time. Fantastic. Looks amazing. Wow, I really want to take these guys' suggestions and consider them. And maybe, you know what? I don't really want to do the research. Maybe I'll just vote for whoever they're telling me to vote for. It seems all very Republican-y, but it's not. This is a dirty trick. This is a trick to get Republicans, who I guess are just uninformed or lazy and don't want to do the research, to get them to vote for Democrats. This is such a scam. Honestly, I don't know who would fall for this, but I'm sure they're getting a few votes because of it. And you know what? I'm not sure that this is just something that they're doing here in Los Angeles. I think that this could be something they're doing nationwide. So how did I figure this out? What tipped me off? Well, I'll explain that in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. Over the years, you've probably tried different investments in stocks and mutual funds. You know they can be up and down all over the place. But with inflation running at 8.5%, its highest rate in 40 years, do you really need that kind of uncertainty? Being able to sleep at night knowing your investments aren't about to crash? Well, that is worth its weight in gold. And speaking of gold, if you've been jumping from one investment to the next, the Gold IRA with Noble Gold is perfect. With gold, you shield your gains from taxes. You keep the real value of your wealth. You own a global asset, something tangible, and you protect your wealth against economic crashes. What is not to like? And this month, for every cash deal above $20K, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call 877-646-5347 right now to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. All right, so like I said, you get this. It looks like a Republican thing. And here's the crazy thing. There's 3 Republicans on the very front of it. These are actual legitimate Republicans running. I think they're decent people. I don't know too much about the 3 of them, but I do know that they are solid Republicans. In fact, I went to an event the other day with Cordy Williams there, but I didn't actually meet him. But anyway, he seems like a legit guy, and so you look at this and you automatically go, okay, this is legitimate, right? But then when you open it up, something funny happens. Okay, you get past the Lincoln, Reagan, Eisenhower thing, and then you start looking at the candidates that they're suggesting here. And most of these you won't know the names of because they're local candidates. But there's one here that really struck me as odd. This is for Los Angeles mayor. These guys are recommending for mayor, they're endorsing Karen Bass. Now, I don't know if you guys know who Karen Bass is. I'm sure some of you do. I'm sure some of you don't. Karen Bass is about as left-wing, a nasty, degenerate progressive as you can possibly get. She was on the short list for Biden's exclusively black female vice presidential picks. And before Biden actually announced who he was picking as vice president, Kamala Harris, Tucker Carlson actually did a little bit of a bit on Karen Bass. Let's watch that now.
You should also know that Joe Biden is considering Congresswoman Karen Bass of Los Angeles as his running mate. She's also on the short list. Unlike Kamala Harris, Karen Bass is not a fraud. Karen Bass means it. She's sincere. She's an unapologetic left-wing bomb thrower who spent decades working to help Fidel Castro in his Cold War against the United States. Karen Bass kept praising Fidel Castro all the way to his death just 4 years ago. In the 1970s, Karen Bass belonged to a group that the LA Police Department accused of training revolutionaries in, quote, terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare. Bass apparently visited Cuba multiple times a year. So it's not pejorative to note that Karen Bass is not a mainstream figure. She literally co-sponsored the New Way Forward Act. That is a lunatic bill that would force the U.S. government to re-import, at taxpayer expense, hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens whom we've deported for committing crimes. Bring them back here. In many cases, violent crimes. For real. Karen Bass is so extreme that, like Kamala Harris, by the way, she's currently trying to repeal California's main anti-discrimination law. Bass wants to make racial discrimination legal as it was before the Civil Rights Movement. We're not overstating this. Karen Bass has issued press releases bragging about it. You may not have heard about any of this. The details are so shocking that virtually no media outlet bothers to cover them. But it is all real. Look it up before it's scrubbed. Keep in mind, this is the person, these are the people who could soon be running our country.
Yeah. This woman, Karen Bass, wants to bring back discriminatory laws. She wants you to be able to discriminate based on race and gender and stuff like that. And the reason she wants you to be able to do this is so that companies and the government and just about anybody can discriminate against white people, so that they can discriminate against men. She is completely bought into this whole concept of critical theory and all the leftist, woke, progressive, Marxist ideas. This is the most left-wing person I could possibly imagine anyone ever endorsing for anything in America. And this supposed conservative mailer is endorsing her. So that was what tipped me off. That was like, as soon as I saw Karen Bass, I'm like, wait, what is this? And here's the thing about this. So I'll go through a couple more of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I obviously, when I was voting, I looked into all these people. I opened up their websites and I tried to make sure, I was voting for all the right people, because I don't know who's running for city controller. I don't know who's running for assessor. I had to look these guys up. If you go to the website of Eli Vera here, he's running for a county sheriff in Los Angeles. He wants to foster a culture of equity and inclusion. City Controller Paul Koretz, this guy, he wants equity. School Board Rocio Rivas, she wants equity. All of these people want equity. As soon as you read on anybody's website that they want equity, run the other way. That person is a completely, they drank the Kool-Aid, okay? They are completely invested in critical theory, right? Critical theory, I'm making a lot of videos on critical theory right now. Critical theory is the thing that we have to run away from in America more than anything else. I've kind of come to the conclusion that America is essentially always going to be divided. In fact, if anything, it's going to become more and more divided as we move forward into the future. And people are just going to pick the groups that they like. So this whole culture war situation is a little bit silly, because at the end of the day, we're all just going to pick our friends. We're all just going to pick our teams. We're all going to just go hang out with the people that we like, and we're going to ignore the people that we don't like for the most. There's always going to be a war for who controls dominance in the culture. That's always going to happen. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as much, because the internet has kind of democratized everything. The whole world has kind of just evolved into these microcultures. We have a million microcultures now. There is no real mainstream. There is no real counterculture. Everything's a counterculture. Everything's mainstream. Everything's whatever you want it to be now because of the internet. You can find the friends that you want. There are people who think that they're dogs or wolves or something. I forget what they call them, but they're weirdos. And they go on the internet and they find other people who also think they're wolves, and they run around the forest barking and stuff. They're crazy people. But you can do that now, and you don't have to worry about other people mocking you, because you just go out and you do it with the other people that like that kind of thing. And so we have these little microcultures now, and so it doesn't really matter. Trying to convince the rest of the country to change their culture into something that you want is never going to work anymore, because everybody's just going to go hide into their microculture. However, when it comes to something like critical theory, this theory that basically white men thousands of years ago designed culture, designed society for their own benefit and to hurt everybody else, and so we now have to be racist and sexist against white men. This is one of the most sinister philosophies I've ever seen emerge in the modern era, right? I don't know if there's much after, say, the 1940s in Germany that rivals this kind of philosophy. This is an absolutely bigoted, terrible, sick, twisted philosophy, and it is subscribed to by, I think, probably every single one of the candidates on this back page. Now, if you go to this front page, this is kind of funny, right? This is kind of weird. They have 3 Republicans on here. Now, why do they have 3 Republicans on there? That is particularly sneaky. The reason that they have 3 Republicans on here is that these are 3 candidates. I think that this is their strategy. These are 3 candidates that are not the front runners, right? So these are candidates that could spoil it for the front runner who's a conservative, right? So if you have a Democrat running and they're doing really well, and you have a Republican running and they're doing well, and then they market these other Republicans and they say, actually, you should be voting for these guys. Well, then what happens is you split the vote. So instead of the Democrat getting nominated and the Republican getting nominated. The way it works in California is a little bit weird. So these are primary elections, right? But you have Democrats and Republicans running together in the primary. So you can actually split the vote for the Republicans, and you can end up with 2 dominant Democrats running in the general election against each other, right? Which is bizarre, but that's how California works. So they're trying to split the vote here, I think, between front-runner candidates and these second-tier candidates. This Jenny LaRue, I've never heard of her. She's running for governor. I've never heard of her, right? The front-runners, I mean, they're trying to take votes away from the front-runners by suggesting that you vote for Jenny LaRue. Cordy Williams, I believe that he's a decent guy. He's running for U.S. Senate, but I don't think that he's the front runner. So again, they're trying to take votes away from the front runner. Here's the weird thing. Despite the fact that I think it's absolutely despicable, despite the fact that this is like a predatory trick. They're preying on the weak-minded. They're preying on people who are lazy. They're preying on people who are a bit stupid. So if you're a conservative in LA, if you're conservative anywhere in America, a Republican or a libertarian or anybody who's not voting for the woke left, you probably have a much better grasp of politics than leftists do. So actually, despite the fact that I think this is predatory and despicable, the fact that they're doing it, I think opens the door for us, because I think that this is actually unethical. But since the Democrats are already doing it, since they're already playing dirty, I say, why don't we do this? If Republicans made a flyer that looked very stylish, looked like something that Democrats would put out, and we were like, we leftists, we strong progressives, we super woke people, we think that you should vote for all these awesome Democrat candidates. But here's the thing. Instead of endorsing like Trump, which of course people are going to go, oh, this is the Republican. Okay, they're trying to trick us, right? Like, this is obviously a trick. As soon as I saw Karen Bass, I was like, why are you even trying to do this? We could produce flyers as Republicans, pretending to be leftists, right? In the same way that they're trying to trick Republicans. But instead of endorsing any kind of Republican, we just do what they've done here. We just endorse the second-tier Democrats, right? We just try to split the vote. That's all we try to do. We could do that all over the country with flyers like this, and we could combat the dirty tricks, the shenanigans that they are engaged with, right? I'm not interested in dirty tricks. I'm not interested in unethical behavior. I'm just interested in leveling the playing field. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is a good strategy, or do you think that I'm turning to the dark side? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they're despicable, dirty tricksters. All right. Good night.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said, if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.